everybody. Welcome! I am so excited about tonight. This has been such an interesting journey. Vanguard Culture has been around for 5 years today. So my name is Susanna Pareto-Swap. I am the founder of Vanguard Culture. I started Vanguard Culture 5 years ago with the intent of creating a virtual space where creative industry professionals can be inspired by one another's work, collaborate, share resources. I also wanted to highlight San Diego's best, most exciting and unique cultural and culinary events. So if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll see that we're always trying to highlight something that kind of falls under the radar, typically. They don't get the big, headlines out there. I did this because after, at the time, almost 15 years of arts programming and arts advocacy in San Diego, I discovered one glaring problem. There was a tendency for creative organizations to work in silos. And there also was this sort of lack of enthusiasm for creative collaboration. And, I believe that, creative organizations and what they do for the community turn around in dollars for the entire city. It is one of the most important industries, all of these, and I'm talking about theater, film, dance, visual arts, music, everything that moves you, that inspires you, is what brings us all and rises us all up. And so this organization, our mission is to create arts jobs, to bring diverse communities together, and to inspire creative collaboration. So in the last 5 years, our all-volunteer team of Vanguardistas have accomplished this. We've promoted over 2,500, we've engaged with over 2,500 creative industry professionals in 5 years. That means that we've brought them together in events like this. We have collaborated and produced over 30 events with some of the region's most notable arts and culture organizations. We have programmed 10 unique creative industry mixers and networking experiences. We've published over 260 original pieces of arts journalism, and all of this has been done as volunteers. Can you believe that?
No, that's great.
That's amazing, right? And we've reached 2 really significant milestones this year. Number 1, we hit over 10,000 subscribers, so that's exciting. And also, we became a nonprofit this year, so woo! Anybody who's ever been through that experience, you know how hard that was to do. I also wanted to share our upcoming season. Now, have any of you here ever been to a foodie soiree with us? Raise your hand. Oh yeah, great, wonderful. So the foodie soirees is kind of what started all of this, and this was my first attempt at trying to bring creative industry professionals together. They are held in the private residences, and we limit it to the first 50 people that RSVP. We have over 500 creative industry professionals on this list. We limit it to the first 50, and we have pop-up art shows, dance performances, spoken word, all sorts of wonderful experiences, and very, very high-level experiences. So, for example, we've had, opera singers that have performed at Carnegie Hall and the Sydney Opera House in people's living rooms. We've had, for example, we held one in my home for the first time a couple years ago, and we had the California Ballet performing in my living room with a museum director sitting on a pillow on the floor watching the show. So it's casual, but it's very high level at the same time. And we ask every single guest to bring a dish to share with the group. So what happens there is real, true networking, really important networking, and wonderful things have happened from those experiences. So next year's foodie soirees, we have 2 wonderful ones. I'm not going to tell you the dates yet because we're negotiating with some really amazing organizations to pull it off, so it's a secret. You'll have to subscribe to figure it out. But they're going to be really great. I'm very excited about them. And then we're going to increase our arts coverage. So right now we have The Buzz, which is our newsletter that comes out. We have 12 cultural correspondents that we send out to the community to review shows and interview artists. And then we have Poetic License. These are artist studio visits, and they are done in a beautiful photo essay style. And then we have these types of events, like these community dialogues that we intend to bring industry professionals together to be inspired by one another's work. And of course, our artists at the table, we have sold out every single one for the past 3 years since it's been in existence. These are 12 individuals that sit down with a notable arts leader in San Diego and get to sit down with them and learn from them, and it's one of the most beautiful experiences. We are very, very honored to have these folks here, and some of them who have been featured artists in the past as well. And what I can tell you about this is that what we do is we task a chef with creating a 4-course menu inspired by the work of the artist. So for example, we had Jennifer Luce, wonderful architect, and then we paired her with a chef, a local chef, Mario Medina, who was the chef de cuisine at the main course in Ramona, and he created this beautiful architectural plating that just spoke to what she does. That's what these experiences are. So typically they run $150 a person or $100 for creative industry professionals, and this year we're going to do something very different. We're going to reserve a key amount for people who are full-time arts students, to try to encourage them to sit down with these amazing people that they typically would never get an opportunity to sit down and have dinner with. And then the forum. This is the one I'm really, really excited about. So the forum it focuses on our Creating Arts Jobs mission, and we will be featuring these wonderful creative industry leaders to teach how to get the job. Nobody teaches you that in art school. We forget to do that part. And so we're going to focus on how to audition for dance, how to get the job, not just talent. The business of theatrical makeup, it is its own little niche industry, but people need to know how to get the jobs there. From portfolio review to branding, and of course, how to bring your film idea to life. So this is an exciting part of our next year's season. And with that, I just want to say I'm so, so honored to have reached this amazing milestone of 5 years doing this. And I want to thank you all for being here. To all of you who have opened up your homes, collaborated with us, supported us by co-programming with us, opened your homes to our events, advocated for us, opened your pocketbooks to support this. Thank you so much. Really, it means the world to me. Before I present our next speaker, I love doing this because at each of our events it gives you a good sense. I want you to look around the room and please raise your hand if you are a visual artist. Great. Now, if you are a musician. Okay. Photographer.
Oh, why are you separating?
I know, I shouldn't separate them. But I'm curious who many photography people are here today. Dancers. Oh, okay. Culinary world, culinary artists. Okay, spoken word. Theater. Opera. What am I missing? Writers. Any writers? Oh, lots of writers. Film. Oh, this is wonderful. So you see, right now you have a room of about 200 creative industry professionals. Congratulations to all of you. Keep pushing forward and keep making San Diego the city that it's supposed to be, a thriving cultural mecca. Let's do this. So with no further ado, it is my sincere honor to introduce to you someone who fell from the sky and is one of my greatest friends and partners, our Outreach and Development Director, Jen Root.
She always says that, I fell from the sky. So I hope that means I'm a good witch and not a bad witch. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. And let's give it up for that pre-show. Was that a good party or what? Thank you, Susanna, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. And thank you for allowing me to share our 5 years and 5 senses campaign that we are launching tonight. So tonight is our 5-year anniversary, as Susanna shared. And in the experience, you got to have sight and sound and taste right out here to celebrate all 5 senses. And all of those senses are coming together in a campaign that we're launching as we become a 501c3. So a little bit about Vanguard Culture. As you know, we are very passionate about creative collaboration. We are very, very passionate about bringing arts jobs to San Diego. And we are very, very passionate about community. So those are the 3 main pulses of Vanguard Culture. And we're able to continue this amazing mission of creating arts jobs, of hosting these intimate dinners with the director of the San Diego Symphony in a private home on a cliff where you can just ask anything and we'll play you a violin solo just because you ask. And you're like, wow, wait. Am I dreaming? Let me pinch myself. So, it's because of our donors, our writers, and just everyone and their tremendous support of our organization that it's all possible. So I wanted to thank you guys. So we are having a campaign where we're encouraging gifts recurring in $5 increments. So if you are interested in supporting Vanguard Culture and really collaborating with our mission, please see me. There's many ways to partner with us, and even just a $5 recurring donation, you're able to get VIP access and premier access to some of our events. So please come find me, and we will look to set up a partnership with you guys. So now let's see here. We have our Master of Ceremonies that I'm about to call up on stage, and we're about to launch into the main event here. So I'd like to introduce Will MARRÉ. First, let's give him a big hand. So Will is one of my mentors, and I can say he fell out of the sky for me, actually, and has been such an inspiration to me personally. And he is, you may know him, he's world-renowned speaker and author of one of my favorite books, which is Save the World and Still Be Home for Dinner, because Will is a very passionate gender synergy advocate and founded the Smart Power Academy, which is a women's leadership institute, and he hosts events all over San Diego about gender synergy and just making the workforce and work culture a better place for all of us women and men alike. He is also the co-founder of the Covey Leadership, which brought us to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that's how I first met Will before I actually met Will. So it's very nice to meet Will in person, if that makes sense. So without further ado, I would like to call Will MARRÉ up on stage and let the inspiration begin.
I usually don't do things like this. And there's 2 reasons why I'm doing it. One is Jen is a force of nature, so I can't say no. And second, I grew up on a cattle ranch, and my father, in particular, loved art. But the way he defined art was a way of living. And he was out fixing fences, and we'd literally go on cattle drives where we'd have to collect all the cattle at the end of, or the beginning of summer before the grass died. And how he choreographed taking 2,000 head of cattle off a ranch, extremely slowly, by the way. It's not like it is in the movies where because you want every ounce of that animal to stay on that animal. And, but he taught me about how to fix a watering trough with a sense of mindfulness and a sense of art. And he taught me to look at a sky and be amazed by how different it would be in the afternoon than in the morning. He just taught me a way of living that I'd have to say was artistic in its core. And he lived with great passion, and so I think you who do art that we all can enjoy and is obviously art is in an extremely high category of human contribution. In my work with corporations, and the reason I'm such an advocate for women, is that recently an anthropologist at Notre Dame finished a book, and the research of the book, he said that the highest human act, the pinnacle of human act, is creative collaboration. It's the hardest thing in the world for human beings to do. And the act of creativity is the ultimate expression of everything that we are, our minds, our emotions, our imaginations. And so it's just a treat to be here tonight. And so I'm going to introduce all these incredible speakers, and I'm going to be amazed, and we're going to follow up. I'm going to ask every speaker one question because I'm intensely curious. And I'm going to do something that I normally don't do, but you deserve it, these 8 wonderful speakers. And I'm going to more or less, normally I really summarize introductions, but what these people have done is so remarkable that I think it deserves a full-throated run-through. So with that, let's get started. First of all, this place is run by an executive director, Deborah Klochko, who is the chief curator of the Museum of Photographic Arts. And she has taught, lectured, and written extensively on photography and curated more than 30 exhibitions throughout her career. And was the executive director of C, which is an award-winning journal of visual culture, and is the founder of Speaking of Light, Oral Histories of American Photographers. She's the author of Picturing Eden and co-authored The Moment of Seeing, Minor White, at the California School of Fine Arts, and Create and Be Recognized. Photography on the Edge, and numerous other publications. She's formerly the director of Friends of Photography, located in the Ansel Adams Center. She also worked for the California Museum of Photography, the International Museum of Photography and Film at the George Eastman House in Rochester, and the Prints and Photographs Division of the Library of Congress. It's fantastic, and Susanna's comments about who we have in San Diego and this wonderful place. Deborah, thank you.
So I'm supposed to give you a heads up when I'm ready to go. Okay. Actually, I had a slide before that, but it was inspire. And it was, whenever I get ready for a project like this, I do some research. And the word inspire comes from the Latin, to breathe upon or into, to breathe. To breathe today can be a challenge when we live in a world designed to distract us. As of last month, just October 2017, we have a global population of 7.6 billion people, which will grow to 11.2 billion by the year 2100. To compare, in the year 1350, the world population was 370 people. The Black Death contributed to keeping that number kind of low at the time. And as you can see from looking at this slide, it took about 1,600 years for the population to grow from 250 million to 500 million people. So another impactful impediment to breathing is the growth of technology. And what you find is that in 1801, Joseph Marie Jacquard, a silk weaver, invented an improved textile loom. The Jacquard loom was the first machine to use punched cards to program the weaving of complex patterns in textiles. Ada Lovelace, known as the Countess of Lovelace, born in 1815, was an English mathematician and writer known for her work on Charles Babbage's proposed mechanical general-purpose computer, the analytical engine. The analytical engine had many essential features found in the modern digital computer that we know today. It was programmable using punched cards, an idea borrowed from the Jacquard loom. So what we find is that technology goes from loom size to room size to tabletop to handheld. And today, over 2.5 billion people have social media accounts. You're wondering what my inspiration is, but we're getting there. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Google+, Pinterest, Snapchat. Facebook has 1.2 billion daily users, and it adds around 5 million users every day, 6 new profiles every second, 100 million hours of daily video watch time. Katy Perry has the most followers on Twitter with 94.65 million followers. Instagram users have shared about 40 billion photographs to date. So 95 million photos and videos are posted to Instagram every day. So technology is speeding along, and how do we deal with all of this information that keeps coming our way? Well, in 2011, an installation at the Amsterdam Foam Gallery by Eric Kessels presented us with the physical reality of a digital deluge of photographs online by printing out 24 hours of uploads to Flickr. And I'm actually learning how this whole process works because I'm getting a little bit ahead of my slides. But what you'll find is that out of all of that amazing amount of work, his installation created a physical reality of this digital deluge of photographs. So these show 24 hours of uploads to Flickr, over 1 million printed images that he piled up against the walls. So breathe, or try to breathe, with all of this information coming at us. I know. Take it in, take it out. So all of this that I've just shared with you is not what inspires me. Rather, I embrace mindfulness. It's a present moment awareness, and while we can all experience it, it's certainly been a part of the Japanese psyche for centuries. The Japanese have a word, jucho. Ju meaning mind, cho meaning umbilical cord. Usually jucho is translated as emotion, though it's a much more subtle and sensitive concept than just that. Jucho is a subtle movement of mind. It's about thinking with the heart. When one perceives a change of seasons, for example, you feel the change of emotions that go with that. Kindness for all things is considered to be attributed to this concept of jucho. It is the details that inspire me, the feel of fabric, the smell of a forest, the sound of silence. That attention to subtlety is more keenly felt in some cultures. The Eskimos, for example, really do have more than 50 words for snow. I'm not going to read the actual Eskimo words, but I'll tell you how they describe snow in English. Powder snow, snow that is crusted on the surface, drifting snow, still snow, remembered snow, forgotten snow, snow that falls in large wet flakes, snow that falls in small flakes, snow that falls slowly, snow that falls quickly, snow that has melted, I'm not going to do all 50 though, snow that has melted and refrozen, snow that has been marked by wolves, snow that has been marked by Eskimos, blowing snow, snow that has been packed down. And it's not just the Eskimo languages that have multiple words to describe snow. The Sami people, who live in the northern tips of Scandinavia and Russia, have at least 180 words related to snow and ice. I find that all of this is really very important to this mindfulness that I like to embrace and that inspires me. This awareness of detail shapes how I engage with the larger world around me. Being inspired by elemental simplicity actually creates a richer, more exciting, and beautiful interaction. It allows me to remain engaged in a world designed to distract us. I have a quote that I want to share with you. Actually, I have two quotes. One is from Maya Angelou. My mission in life is not entirely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. And then finally, a quote from Helen Keller, which really speaks in many ways to the importance of Jucho and all that I've tried to share with you today. And that slide will hopefully be coming up there. The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. Thank you very much for letting me be a part of this. You took my talk when you got up there.
Well, I'm fascinated by your obviously linking mindfulness to living in an artful way. My question is, in terms of your career in curating art, and particularly photography and so on, if the eye of a photographer has to be that present moment, that detail, that moment of capturing light and so on, and how do you encourage artists who, I guess, want to make a living at it? How do you do that?
That's almost impossible. What you try to encourage is the passion for making the art, because that's really what's important. And going after their vision, but to try and encourage or give direction on how to make money is almost impossible. But the idea is really to be true to your ideas and your experience of how you visually engage with the world. So I feel that that is a more important service than I would actually discourage people from trying to make a living with photography, which is something that I did in my own career path. I worked for a fashion I mean, who knew that there were photo museums? And so trying to work as a commercial photographer for a fashion photographer, and I realized that that wasn't what my passion was, and that wasn't the direction that I wanted to go. So that's really all I can tell you on that.
Well, that is really unexpected. Thank you. I think we'd have to say that Deborah did a really good job of surprising us. I had no idea where she was going with that Facebook stuff. and it's that was a very artistic presentation, by the way, because it switched my mind. I'm going to introduce an opera singer. He's also the general director of the San Diego Opera, but he has a beautiful baritone voice. And I was talking to him before the session, and he said something really surprising to me. I said, "Why did you stop the singing part and start the leadership part?" And he said, "Because it was more creative." So we're gonna find out about that. But he's worked with a number of opera companies and orchestras throughout the United States, including the Dallas Opera, the Dallas Symphony, Skylight Opera Theater, the Florentine Opera Milwaukee, the David and Gotham Chamber Opera's managing director and executive director, and prior to that at the Dance New Amsterdam, Lower Manhattan Center for Dance Education, Creation, and Performance, where he served as the managing director. But not only that, he's not just a voice. He holds an MBA and an MA in Arts and Administration from SMU in Dallas, and was vice chair of the board of directors of Opera America. David Bennett.
Thank you very much. So 20 slides about inspiration that go by very quickly in 20 seconds is always a challenge. So I'm actually going to hold the microphone so I can make sure I'm watching what's happening up here. So I am chiefly my starting point is that I am a musician, so I am inspired by music. I was a singer, still am a singer, and I work in music, in opera clearly, but I am inspired by all forms of music. My brother is a jazz musician, my mother was a pianist, so that's my primary point of inspiration, both as an artist and as a leader. So I find my primary inspiration in music. Friends. My friends mean a great deal to me. My friends are honest. They inspire me in many ways. They teach me things about myself. I think it's very important that we select our friends, that they are sort of our personal board of directors to help provide us inspiration and leadership and guidance. These are not my friends, but I have my own set of friends. History. I find inspiration in history, and that's sort of a two-sided road when I think of that. First, of course, operas are based oftentimes on specific moments in history, so it's an inspiration for the field that I'm in, but I'm also inspired by what has happened in music, in the history of music, and also what has happened in the field of opera. I find that as a source of inspiration. Architecture. I dabbled in architecture between when I was singing professionally and teaching and made the decision to go into arts management. I studied architecture for a short period of time, thought that was the direction I was going to take, found wonderful commonalities in form, rhythm, structure. I love to observe architecture and use that as a source of creative inspiration and for what I do. Dreaming. So dreaming is an inspiration both literally, what happens at night when I wake up and I think about what I've just thought about, and what happens in the day. So what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What are my dreams? What are my dreams for my company that I manage? What are my dreams for the field that I'm in? What are my dreams for myself as an individual? Art. Art is a great inspiration. I like to see, of course, what's happening in other media, what kinds of new ideas are being expressed and what kinds of old ideas are being expressed. So losing yourself in an art museum is a wonderful source of inspiration for, I think, all of us as creatives. My audience. Audiences should be a great source of inspiration to us. Frustration maybe sometimes, but also inspiration. We must, those of us that work in the performing arts, we have to learn from our audiences. We spend a great deal of time trying to think about what they want from us. But I think we have to think about what they actually inspire in us as leaders and as artists, finding that we move our passions along the lines of what our audiences tell us is a great source of inspiration. My passport in travel inspires me a great deal as well. Just like history, putting yourself in the context of other cultures is a great source of inspiration. This past summer I went to Sicily, which is a place I hadn't been before. I'd been to Italy many times, but putting myself in the context of a new place and scratching the surface and finding the richness of culture that was underneath that place was a great inspiration. My colleagues inspire me. It's a wonderful thing to be able to say. They do, they inspire me. They challenge me, they teach me things as a leader. I hope I teach them things too, but we work together in a very way with a great deal of synergy and creative inspiration for each other. So here's an interesting idea about inspiration. Failure, missing the target. So I think, I was thinking about what are the things that actually inspire me when I've made mistakes and not gone in the direction that I thought things were going to go. Instead of thinking that that is just a mistake, actually finding a way to have that be a source of inspiration for things that you're doing, either as an artist or for me now as a leader. Nature clearly inspires, I think, all of us as creatives, right? Finding a way to unplug, to take myself out of the context of what I do on a daily basis, which is inherently a creative field, but unplugging from that, putting myself in the context of silence and another source of beauty is a great source of inspiration for me. We have a lot of it around us here, which is great. Similar to what I said about failure, naysayers. So if someone says, you know, you can't do that, or that's not going to work, or that's not a good idea, that's also a great sense of inspiration. It inspires me to prove that they're wrong, that actually what my ideas are can actually be done. Finding that as a challenge and a source of inspiration. Exercise. I actually find exercise to be a great source of inspiration. I work out with a trainer 3 days a week, and I challenge myself. I challenge myself physically. I find myself doing things that I didn't think I was capable of doing, and that inspires me. It inspires me to be a creative individual. It also inspires me to be the leader that I want to be. Design, just like architecture, I find good design is a great source of inspiration. Many of the building blocks of opera are embedded in design: costume design, lighting design, sound, video design. So seeing what's happening with great thought leaders and creative energy in those areas inspires me as a leader in the world of opera. Reading and books, just like history and just like nature, taking myself out of the context of what I do on a daily basis, again, which is creative, and putting myself in another context is a way to inspire me. We learn a great deal from moving backwards in history through books. We also learn a great deal of moving forward with imagination through history and books and reading. I look to industry leaders as a source of inspiration. In my introduction, it was mentioned that I am vice chair of the board of Opera America, which is the service organization for opera. And through that relationship, I've learned to learn a great deal from those that are in my field, that are around me now that I can learn from, and also those that preceded me, that teach me a great deal about my field. Solace, being alone, unplugging. Like many of you, I find myself on a lot. I perform, in effect, in my job, and I need to recharge, and I think that's probably something that a lot of us have in common, and that is a great source of inspiration, to be able to unplug, recharge, find inspiration in those moments of solitude. Cooking and food. I find a great deal of inspiration in this. Cooking is actually akin in some ways to producing an opera. You need a great recipe to put it together. You need a lot of creative parts to come together. You need a little combustion. This is what I do on a daily basis when I put operas together. And also there's sharing involved generally in cooking. And I find that food teaches me about cultures and about the other people that I interact with around a table of food. Of course, opera is theater, and so I find great inspiration from looking at works of theater live. And we have a great benefit here in San Diego. I've been here 2 years now, and I'm so surprised to see that we have a very, very high quality theater produced here, and I find it a great source of inspiration to me, both as a creative individual and as a leader. And finally, risk. Risk is a great source of inspiration, right? We're creative. We're intended to be creative. I think inherent in creative activity is learning to take risks and making peace with that, and actually finding inspiration from the moments that you've taken risks. And I think that's my 20. Goes by quick.
Well, I have to say, wow, you're one inspired individual.
Thank you.
So pretty much everything inspires you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to follow up on the question that I asked before, and you do have a great voice.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that you, I guess, I don't know if you quit singing altogether. It doesn't sound like it, but you quit making that the focus of your professional life,
yeah,
and got into the leadership aspect. And you said, I found that to be more creative. And I'd just like to hear what you have to say about it.
Sure. Well, so I will, a little caveat with that, and that is I was involved sometimes as a singer in producing new work. And in that aspect, I was involved in actually creation. Oftentimes what happens as a performing artist, especially when you're young, is that you are recreating, and there can be a lot of creative energy that comes from that, but I found myself to be a cog in a wheel. And wasn't terribly creatively fulfilled, and I found through what I'm doing now as a leader, there's whole aspects of my creative mind and my creative energy that I'm engaging. So, you know, I choose the repertoire, I choose the singers, I choose the conductors, I choose the designers, I do all of that, and that's truly the creative part. But I also oversee marketing, I also oversee the fundraising, and that's inherently creative as well. So being a leader flexes my creative muscles in a way as being a singer never did. And I still sing in the shower, but that's about it. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, that's an example of just life inspiring. Our next speaker is Debra McGinty Poteet. And she's really an arts advocate. So she has a whole career, 35 years in high-power finance executive. I was talking to her a little bit before. And she does road shows, which are murderous because she's trying to convince very analytical people that she's actually smarter than they are. And but at any rate, her travels and her life has given her the opportunity to experience some of the world's most notable artworks and pay attention to art's impact on the human experience, which he has found personally very inspiring, along with her husband Larry. And so she started collecting art out of a mutual need that, what she says, eventually became a form of art therapy, and hopefully we'll hear a little bit more about that. And so she has spent really her whole mature life collecting art, but probably is maybe even more meaningfully, she's become an advocate of artists. And just like she's used her capacity to understand the larger world to help artists promote and get recognized. And so we're excited to hear what inspires you, Deborah.
Thank you. So most people don't start off a talk with a disclaimer, but I will, because this is a disclaimer for my husband, because this is really kind of a love letter of what I'm going to talk to you about now, a love letter between he and I as we dealt with some very difficult things in our life. So my husband and I is equal partner in this adventure. I'm going to talk about what my experiences with respect to collecting art. I'm not going to pretend to speak to him, but for him. But he and I we're both definitely committed 150% in this venture that we've undertaken together. So we have our daughter, Rhiannon, to thank for this adventure, this journey that we engaged on. And this journey, this path of collecting art has enabled us to have just this wonderful twisting journey of discovery involving miraculous characters, hidden underground studios, untrodden paths in Mexico, Britain, Ireland, the Czech Republic, China, Scotland, and France to find avant-garde art-making studios and communes, Irish countrysides, and quite a few curious cows. My career for over 35 years, as mentioned earlier, has been in finance. Lots of reading, lots of numbers, lots of meetings. We wear suits and formal clothes, a uniform, so to speak, with very clear rules regarding everything in the workplace, from behavior to the length of your skirt. There are both written rules and unwritten rules that you must be careful to follow if you want your career to progress. All spontaneity is guarded, and one must know who they can trust if you plan on being candid. Creativity is for those folks in marketing and advertising. We are in the serious business of making money and preserving our clients' money. In our late 20s, Larry and I, my husband, found out that our only child, 4 years old at the time, was severely retarded and autistic. I spent my days trying to lose myself in my work and spent my nights in terror and despair for the fate of our beautiful daughter. My husband was also going through his own personal depression about our child, and we could find no joy in anything that we were doing.
My rule-ridden workplace had no rules for dealing with a broken heart, and the law had no precedent for what my husband had to deal with. Although I must say that my husband was much more optimistic about the fate of our child than I was, I could only imagine the worst. We received respite care from the state so that we could get a day off from the intense care that our child required. We decided that we needed to do something together that made us talk to each other about something other than our work and our terribly damaged child. We randomly decided to visit museums and art galleries, together with no other express purpose than learning about something new that either of us really knew much about, and that we could do it together. And then we met Adam Meckler, owner of Meckler Fine Art Gallery in Los Angeles, California. Little did we know that we had just entered the rabbit hole. I think that's the next one. Adam, with his vast wealth of knowledge and jovial disposition, invited and happily beckoned us to explore the world in which he inhabited. His world was full of genius and beauty and mystery and delight. Adam taught us about diptychs and aquatints, etchings, artist prints, watermarks, and Verdi. He represented Vuillard, Bonnard, Picasso, and Matisse estates, David Smith, Milton Avery, Sally Michael Avery, and Rembrandt. He showed us what he was talking about so we could kinesthetically learn the differences between the techniques. He directed us to see the work of Dürer, who he considered one of the greatest artists of all time. He invited us to all-night sessions at his house to watch Puccini opera videos, explore new Amazonian art arrivals from South America, elaborate feather headdresses that I got to model, look at new works that he found by Sally Michael Avery, or a prize possession, a drawing he had by Pizarro. He was the wizard and we were his apprentices. We forgot about our black and white careers and our anguished home life. We became ravenous consumers of knowledge of all forms of art that Adam introduced us to. We wanted our minds to be filled with everything about art. None of what he shared with us was with the direct intent to sell, but his joy in sharing his own prodigious knowledge in the art he knew and loved, and to seduce us into the other world of art and music that he inhabited. He also was a collector. He collected the above artists, but he also collected Roman antiquities, Amazonian art of all kinds, and ceramics. His enthusiasm infected us. We replaced our moping with the pursuit of art knowledge. It's like my world suddenly went from black and white to technicolor. I began to shed my skin of sadness and entered this intriguing new world. We began to spend all of our free time visiting art galleries, museums, studios, and private collections to educate our eyes. Thousands of images later, with every business trip, pleasure trip, and weekend devoted to seeing art, we came to and discovered what inspired us, what we could not live without. I also noticed that the art on the wall at Security Pacific Bank and then Bank of America, where I worked, was fantastic. How could I have not noticed? I was surrounded by Frank Stella, Helen Frankenthaler, Carlos Almaraz, Tom Holland, Vija Clemens, Ed Ruscha, Henry Moore, Calder, Roberto Gildamontes, to name a few. My eyes were now open, and I began to see my whole world through the lens of an art collector. I also began to assess people with my new open eyes. What hung in their office, on their office walls? How did they dress with color in our regimental environment? Who were my fellow collectors, and what and why did they collect? We became increasingly attracted to paintings with narrative and story within a story, hidden meanings, difficult meanings, the fine craftsmanship and great technique. I was intrigued by paintings and mixed medium that told the story of events, war, tragedies, social upheaval, riots, despair, renewal, hope, obsession, the human condition. We went to Italy and strengthened our visual knowledge with all of the great paintings, frescoes, and sculptures of the Renaissance, and I became obsessed with wanting to see all of Caravaggio's limited oeuvre. We decided after 10 years to have a second child, and we became attracted to paintings and sculptures of mothers and children that, when before that we were not. We were more abstract oriented. We collect artists who lived where we lived and worked. Our collection became rich in Los Angeles artists, British artists, and border artists. I am inspired today by paintings that tell a story about the times in which we live. I'm inspired by bright colors and audacious prints, audacious points of view that make me think and stop me in my tracks. I'm inspired by fine craftsmanship and attention to detail. I hate copycats and feel sorry for artists who think they are unique in some work they have created, which is really a ripoff of someone else who came before and they don't even know it. To be original, you have to acknowledge what became before and create a new voice. That's why there are a lot of artists, but only a few are really collected. Originality inspires me. You probably have guessed it, that I don't see a lot of it, but I know it when I see it. Thank you.
Well, that was amazing, in a great way. I'm really obviously taken by your journey of artist therapy, and I guess if you had magical powers and could inject something into the mind of every human being that you've learned, a point of view, a dream for them, a perspective that has enriched your life and maybe in a sense saved your psychological life, what would that be? What would you want every human being on the earth to feel or understand that you've come to feel and understand?
Well, there's a heavy question. Well, you know, this journey has given me an appreciation. I mean, I was a farm child like you, and I grew up in the Central Valley where there wasn't a lot of beauty. It was flat and there's beauty in agriculture, but not like what we've seen. And this journey of what artists have done now and what they've done in the past, and I'm a real geek for going back into archaeological times. I did an archaeological study in Sicily and Greece and Turkey and went back 2,000-3,000 years and looked at what the Romans and then before them the Greeks and the Assyrians and what they were doing with painting and frescoes and tile. And what seems to be the human experience that can change how we behave and how we feel is that beauty, just beauty, whether it's looking out at a farmland or a beautiful fresco or a forest or a face, just taking the whole human experience and having it just injected into you with that appreciation of the artist eye, I think changes lives and perspectives and makes us all better humans.
I just couldn't agree with you more. Thank you so much. Well, I don't really have to say what you're already thinking. This is like crazy. This is wow. What a great idea to ask people that question. What inspires you? Our next speaker has a special place for me. I do, as mentioned, I do a lot of work with bias in the workplace. And bias is a pervasive, universal terrible, dehumanizing problem. And we all do it. We all use a shortcut of thinking of dividing the world into people who are like us and people who are not like us. And it is so powerful, so subconscious, so built into our shortcut thinking that we're totally unaware of it. And the effect of that bias is completely disempowering to people who are outside whatever the norm is of the in-group. And that's why I'm delighted to introduce to you Peter Kalivas, who is the executive director of the PGK Dance Project. He's a recipient of multiple grants and fellowships in support of his work. He holds 2 honorary masters in arts diplomas through the Ministers of Education of Peru and Kazakhstan, is a senior cultural specialist and envoy of dance for the U.S. Department of State, and has directed mutual exchange projects in Central Asia, Asia and Africa, Central and South America. He's a Fulbright scholar. He's a guest teacher and choreographed at many of the major arts institutes and universities, including New York University, the Boston Conservatory, Cal Arts, the New World School of the Arts, North Carolina School of Arts, Virginia School of Arts, the Jacob Pillow Institute, and all over the world, Salzburg, Taiwan School of the Arts, and so on. And Peter, please join us.
How are you guys doing? All right. So I always like to just kind of lead with like, how you guys doing before I talk. One of the things I wanted to find out is who loves the Golden Girls, the TV show The Golden Girls? Yes, let me hear it. So picture it, it's 1980, and there was once a little Greek boy from Long Island, New York. And in our culture, like in so many cultures, you know, dance, music, and food is not just a way of life, it's how we learn about and preserve and celebrate our cultural identity. This is an essential part of our human condition, knowing who and what you are, something we cherish, we should all cherish and respect for ourselves and for others. That was my father previously and myself dancing at my cousin's big fat Greek wedding. This is Mr. Alvin Ailey. It wasn't until I was 18, overweight and 2 inches shorter than I am today, that I realized I wanted to become a professional dancer. And Mr. Ailey was one of the few people at the time in the early 80s when I started serious dance training who not only did not reject me, but treated me like a total, treat me like a total outsider, but in fact taught me I was special because I was me. He did this because he too knew what it felt like to be outside. It was Mr. Ailey who was arguably probably one of the first social justice pioneers in dance ever in America, creating platforms and spaces in and through the arts for disenfranchised, underrepresented bodies and the outsiders like myself at the time. In 1988, I got one of 4 available scholarships to his very prestigious school, and 1 year later, I was a member of his second dance company, Ailey 2. This picture in particular, the last picture, that's me jumping high above the stage at the Joyce Theater in New York City. I was an original member of Sean Curran Company. I dedicate a lot of myself to Sean because that company was nothing but misfits. It was people who didn't fit into the expectations and assumptions of what a dancer is supposed to look like, how we're supposed to behave, and what we're supposed to be able to do. It was completely and totally awesome. And it's how I run my life today. San Diego Dances is a program I started here in San Diego when I moved from New York in 2006 that takes dance to alternative spaces given to me for free by owners who appreciate the value of cross-promotion. I take professional dance to hair salons, the lobbies of buildings, and loft spaces all throughout San Diego County, the city as well. Since the space was free, I could charge less, which immediately made what we did affordable to more different kinds of people. Our company is multi-ethnic. We dance works by a wide variety of different choreographers, of different styles and points of view, which reflects the diverse interests of our growing audiences today. Through this more sustainable model, we can be sure to pay our dancers, our choreographers, our teachers, and our staff. This is us in Boston at the Boston Center for the Arts, so now I'm off script. Coming up, I sing as well as David, right? I had, for a long time, the last 30 so years, I had a long career in dance, and I also had a parallel career, in music. I sang with Journey, the band, also Patti LaBelle, a wonderful R&B soul singer. And so I do a lot of singing. I work for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I do a lot of benefits for them. It's really, really important that we work together, and we're a big, gigantic, universal family, just like you can hear tonight. This image, this is Dance on the Edge. For the last 8 years, I've been producing Dance on the Edge at Mission Federal Credit Union's Art Walk. Over 2 days, we show 25 professional and semi-professional companies that represent the region and across the United States. 10,000 people see really high quality dance for free over 2 days' time. This is a collaboration. My company, just like Vanguard Culture, really thrives through collaboration and partnership. So this is Cristina Covarubia, who also works with the San Diego Opera sometimes. We did a collaboration with her and also a classical Indian Bharatanatyam dancer, a tap dancer. I wanted to find where we mutually come together, and it was through percussion. Flamenco is percussive. Classical Indian dance is percussive. We used American tap dance, and I brought these artists together, and we created works together by finding a rhythm, our universal rhythm. That we share, that's in common. This is me with my company at the Lyceum Theater. So every single fall, even though we do a lot of alternate space work, we fall back into a theater every fall. So just like we fell back this weekend in time. I'm very proud. This is actually a work by Sean Curran as well. That's me singing at the Garfield Theater with one of my dancers. So one thing I do a lot, not a lot, but one thing I do is I'm singing a cappella. And it's interesting, that's also my choreography. So I get to accompany my work. I no longer dance, and so it was interesting to then be able to use my voice as a way to continue being present and being here in the creative and mutual space. That's me. I don't know, I never thought of myself as an advocate, but somehow recently I just got this thing, right? I needed to be more loud. I needed to be more proud, more present about why and how arts matter. And so now I've become much louder and much more boisterous. I'm surprised you guys haven't heard me already. And this is, I did a residency at the Monarch School. If you guys know the Monarch School, these are homeless kids. They don't know where they're gonna live. They don't know where they're gonna be this next weekend. And yet they found the time to take class with me for 10 weeks and to write why dance matters. Why do we dance? I mean, I was shocked, right? These people, they don't know what's going to happen to them, and yet they understood they could have a future through dance. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about giving everyone an opportunity through dance. These are my dancers. I live in District 4 down in Southeast San Diego. These are my dancers. They're dancing on a concrete slab, obviously, like a basketball court, for residents of D4, District 4. It's important that we get out, and we get out of the theater, and then we get out of the confines of these spaces, and then we take it outside. This is the audience. These people came to see us dance, but instead I made them dance with us. Because I want them to know what it feels like. I want them to feel how and why it matters, right? I need them to understand, not just to listen to me talk about it, but to know, to truly, truly know. This is a free dance class I give if you guys want to come, oh my gosh, tomorrow night, 5:30 to 7 o'clock, Malcolm X Library. Seriously, come and take my class. It's free. Yeah, Councilwoman Myrtle Cole gave me some money, and it's free, right? Because we need you all to understand how and why it matters by doing it and experiencing it yourself, right? I am looking out for the future of dance. So one of my, many of dancers, I take people in the community under my wing and I mentor them. And this is a young choreographer here in San Diego. This is a photo of a stunning, friggin' stunning duet he made because I told him he could, he should, right? Someone has to believe in you. Someone, Mr. Ellie believed in me, so I wouldn't be here. This is my company today. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
That was a fire hose of passion, which we like. So, I guess the question that's burning inside me is, as a person with a non-traditional body for dancing, what advice, for someone who feels on the outside of the club, of whatever it is, what advice would you give them to train the voice inside their head? What would you want that voice to say when you feel on the outside?
You know what? I've been in that circumstance so much. I've been told directly, like, no, we're not taking you today. You know, you're not tall enough to ride this ride. You know, and it's crazy. It's just, it's daunting. You just never ever think you'd ever experience such dramatic rejection, right? And so, but what I tell my people now is, and all my students and all my dancers is, I mean, I don't want to be superficial about it. Like, I don't just say, oh, no, you're beautiful, blah, 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 blah. That's crap. You know, it's like, no, you go out there and you show them that you belong here. You keep showing up until they realize they're wrong. They need to be, because you can't tell someone they're wrong. They have to discover that on their own. And that's what I did. I kept showing up. Just when they kept saying no, I just kept showing up the next day. And I just never stopped showing up, right? So there you go.
Some of the best advice ever offered. Just keep showing up. Ingrid is another example of what Peter was just talking about. Just never quitting, showing up. So as a San Diego visual arts advocate, restaurateur, her mixed media collages have carried scholarships to the Rhode Island School of Design and the Moore College School of Art as a resident, and she was also in residence at the New York Museum of Folk Art. She was never bound by one medium. She turned her creative attentions to a variety of art, the art of music, signing to Capitol Records with her late husband Jim Croce, and writing and singing folk, pop, and R&B music rooted in Americana. The art of television, producing documentaries for VH1, Behind the Music, PBS, and CMT. She also embodies the art of the restaurant, establishing San Diego's Croce restaurant, founding the San Diego Restaurant Week, pioneering the gas lamp revitalization. Over 30 years ago, she did this. And also the art of literature, penning several cookbooks, an award-winning biography, I Got a Name, with her husband, musician Jimmy Rock. And she is an advocate for the women's advancement in the arts. Recently, in 2015, Ingrid was honored with the Women in Leadership Award and introduction into San Diego's Women's Hall of Fame. She describes her arts practice as a muchness, the sweetness with the bitter, the hummingbird with the bull, love with the loss of us. Ingrid.
Hi. Would you start? Okay. Have you ever suffered from artist interruptus? It's all about losing your way and trying to find it again. When I pioneered the gas lamp, and opened Croce's restaurant and jazz bar, there was no time for my art. So when Maureen Nahara asked if I wanted to join her art class, I figured it was time. I remembered when my twin sister Phyllis and I were children, and we'd go down to my grandmother's dress store in South Philadelphia. Phyllis was inspired by dresses and accessorizing them. I wanted to go upstairs with Frances and her sewing machines to make art from scraps of material and discarded patterns. My parents divorced when I was 5. My mother was inspired by music, and when I sat beside her, I would sing my heart out. She played piano until she died of breast cancer at 36. My father, a doctor, was inspired by nature. He took us on hikes and taught us about birds and camping. When I was a teenager, I was inspired by everything. My dad said, "What do you really want to do, Ingrid?" I told him I wanted to be an artist. He said, "Follow your dreams." My father died of cancer, pancreatic cancer, when I was 19. But because of my dad, I chose Rhode Island School of Design. When I was 16, I met a sophomore from Villanova University. His name was Jim Croce. We discovered that our voices blended beautifully together, and because of music, we fell madly in love. At RISD, he sent me poems, haiku poems. On the temple's great bronze bell, a butterfly sleeps in the noonday sun. Sometimes inspiration leads us to where we least expect it. When we got married, Jim and I were singing and writing, and I was happy to be his muse. But when we wanted to make music our profession, we went to New York City to audition for a record producer. We were so excited when we got a deal on Capitol Records. The next 2 years, we were traveling and performing college concerts. This was our most romantic period, but sadly it didn't pay the bills. So we moved to the country, where Jim got a job driving truck. By day, I sold my paintings and pottery and planted a garden. And at night, we played music in local bars and clubs. In between writing You Don't Mess Around with Jim and Time in a Bottle, our son Adrian James was born. Jim found success with new songs. He was flying off to Europe, and it felt like inspiration flew with him. The complications during childbirth caused the death of our second son, Max. I was alone and devastated. We hoped San Diego would be our promised land. Jim would make a movie with Cheech and Chong and host a Johnny Carson show. I would stay at home with Adrian James, and when Jim's plane crashed in Natchitoches, Louisiana, I became a widow at 26. His song Time in a Bottle took on a different meaning for everyone. In shock and in the depths of depression, I knew I needed to find the strength to start again. AJ wanted me to stop smoking. He said, I only have one parent left, so I quit. I ran the Stockholm Marathon, yoga, I practiced yoga and meditation. Om Mani Padme Om. Because the music business was so dishonest, I had to fight 3 lawsuits over 10 years. There were predators all around us. I was poisoned, raped, and my son went blind. It was the darkest time in my life. But writing songs through it all. And when litigation was over, I was inspired to sing again. As AJ slowly regained his sight, I was regaining hope in my life. In 1978, I recorded a solo album with the Rod Stewart Group. I was on tour promoting my CD when I developed a tumor on my vocal cord. After 2 operations, I found I could never sing again. Everything went quiet. I tried to figure out I tried to figure out what kind of work I was prepared to do. I wanted to be part of my San Diego community. Late one night, I made dinner for my friend Joanne, brisket simmus and blintzes for dessert. "You should open a restaurant," she said. I was so inspired by Joanne's suggestion, I got a license the very next day. The day my liquor license arrived, my house burned to the ground. And I thought, what next? Then I met Jimmy Rock on Table 21, and my luck changed. I vowed never to be involved with an attorney or musician again, and he was both. We fell in love immediately. And we've been married 29 years this Thanksgiving. We went to India on our honeymoon and followed in the footsteps of the Buddha. Our trips took us to Africa, Nepal, Europe, Turkey, and many other countries. But for me, the serenity of Tahiti is profound. And when we found Moorea 20 years ago, we found paradise and peacefulness. Jimmy says that my artwork is like a Bob Dylan song, where everything happens at once and open to interpretation. Okay, that's it. This is my piece, and this, well, this is Monet. This is the way I experience my life. The past is always present. After 30 years, my landlord refused to renew our lease, and we were forced out of the gas lamp. We relocated in Bankers Hill and continued our dedication to serving the public and supporting live music. We were sad when we sold our restaurant. I miss it still. The club was such an inspiration for musicians and my community. What inspires you? Jazz is usually playing when I make my art. With collage, I cover the surface with newspaper. Then comes the paint, the wood, the photographs. Every painting is different. On my recent trip to Japan, the impressions I got were colorful and delicious. And I was inspired by the interplay of randomness and order. Every piece I make is a collapse of time. In my head, it's all layered, and it all exists at once. Love, loss, and rebirth. Consider the beauty of the butterfly cocooned in its chrysalis, or the phoenix emerging from the ashes. At 70, I've discovered that artists interrupt us is a myth. Life's challenges aren't interruptions. They're the wellspring of creativity and inspiration. Whatever you're inspired to do, make music, paint, dance the ballet, or open a hotel in Hakone, Japan. Don't be discouraged by life's disappointments. The real prison is in your mind. Never believe a prediction that does not empower you.
Well, you're not 70.
I'm 70.
No.
No, I'm 70.
It can't be true.
No, I'm 70.
Timeless. Maybe
Yes.
you're timeless. Well, your story is beyond, your life is beyond remarkable. And what occurred to me as I was listening to you tell it almost as a poem was so many people who would have, a small percentage of the obstacles and challenges that you had would ask themselves, why me, why me, why me, which would be very disempowering. And I just wondered, how did you deal with, did that question occur to you, and how did you deal with it?
Well, I've always been too busy to rely on self-pity or or why me? My ambition drives me forward, and my husband crazy. But besides, I had a 2-year-old, and I needed to make him, my son, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I was just too busy, you know. I don't know. There was no time for defeat.
Great. Great. That's a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You know, tonight's a night I wish everybody in the world could hear this.
They will. They will be on YouTube.
Well, I wish all those people that are joining Facebook would listen to this. And if you could make that happen, Jen, make that happen. Whew. Right. Well, our next remarkable person, Maxine Mahon, is the executive director of the California Ballet Company. And I just, she's done all this remarkable thing, but I just, and I'll read it to you, but next year the California Ballet Company will celebrate 50-year anniversary. She has 800 students. And she's been the director of that ballet company for all 50 years. So I'm very excited to hear about that. What I know about her is that because she has the knowledge of the classical syllabus and the proven integrity of distinctive training methodology, she's produced graduates who have been led into professional careers in dance. Her training and coaching of talented California Ballet Company dancers for international competitions all over the world has attracted, well, the respect of the dance community worldwide, and focused here on what she's done in San Diego. It's one of the largest academies of professional dance in California, and her perseverance, her vision of what is excellence has led to a life of ballet and a life of accomplishment that is virtually unparalleled. Maxine?
Well, it's been an inspiring night, hasn't it? I'm more inspired now than ever from listening to everybody. I'm going to have to put a little glasses on for a minute. Ready. This is Flora, my mother. She inspired me my whole life with her spirit and character, raising a family for 18 years while my father was gone in 2 wars. She was the 4th generation San Diegan in our family, making me the 5th. Not only a dancer, but she was a teacher and a choreographer, and she especially loved all the different styles of dancing. The Hotel del Coronado was a favorite site for Flora. As San Diego's first ballerina, she performed one-man acts there in the 1930s. Other family members loved the Hotel del also. This beautiful San Diego landmark helped to inspire my love of local history. And it looks so much different today than it does in this photo, but I love that one. Flora also danced in the opening of the Balboa Theater in 1924. She then performed again at age 95 in 2008 reopening. My interest in local sites was again inspired, bringing California Ballet to the Balboa to be the resident dance company in our city at that site. This is Johnny and Flora, again my inspirational parents. Johnny, the 30-year Marine hero, and Flora, the city's major dance matron. They were all well known for their selflessness and charity and time. In the early years of our CBC, he made the props and she made most of the costumes. They inspired and continually encouraged me to continue the effort of a new ballet company. Our family members continue to inspire others. From the left, my ballerina sister Marlene, myself, CBC ballerina and teacher Denise Dabrowski, Flora, and the 6th generation San Diegan, my daughter Clarissa. Clarissa is now also teaching in our school. She's taken over management and beginning to help me more and more. Poteet starred the famous dancers. The early 19th century ballerinas still inspire the dancers of today. This recreation was included in CBC's first performances in 1968. In the lower right, I danced the role of the great Lucille Grand. We still keep this ballet in our repertoire. Costumes were made by Flora. Chuck Bennett, a dancer from ABT and New York City Ballet. He developed a young touring company and inspired me to bring them to San Diego in the early 1970s. He encouraged me to continue the struggle to provide San Diego with a resident ballet company. His talent and creativity was a huge inspiration to all who worked with him. Albinoni Adagio, Padua, when my sister Marlene and her partner Doug embarked on the World Ballet Competition, we went to New York, where Chuck Bennett created the duet to Albinoni music. This garnered both silver and gold medal awards internationally. This success inspired us all to continue our endeavors, and we've performed this ballet with many ballerinas over the years. The great local history of Josefa Carrillo inspired me to begin my California Heritage Project. I researched the story, and Mr. Bennett created the early multimedia version of San Diego history. We used many local sites for inspiration, like the San Diego Mission and the Star of India. Again, early costumes by Flora. The famous local Balboa Park and Starlight Bowl inspired me to create a full-length ballet of Shakespeare's masterpiece, A Midsummer Night's Dream. Other great literary works inspired our repertoire: Romeo and Juliet, Dracula, Alice in Wonderland, Snow White, Peter Pan, and The Great Gatsby. This photo of students posed in arabesque at the bar is an example of what inspires me to teach this art form for upcoming generations. CBC has sent many dancers into professional careers. The school is currently in 3 locations with approximately 600 to 800 students annually. Again, inspired by good photographs on the wall. Calvin Kitten is a perfect example of a locally trained dancer to make a career. Also inspires others to dance professionally. He is one of my proudest achievements. He represents California ballet training in the dance world. Here he is in a production that we've performed many times, the Ballet Giselle. He became the principal dancer of the Joffrey Ballet for 20 years and is now teaching. Education and outreach has taken me back to my alma mater, Lincoln High School. Setting up a dance program to include classes and performances was both challenging and rewarding. Hopefully more students have been inspired to love dance. This photo is our first class to complete the program. Our beautiful San Diego Civic Theater was built in 1964. I danced on the stage in the opening. Following my mother's path from Balboa, the theater inspired me to work towards California Ballet becoming the resident ballet company there. We have performed 45 consecutive years of Nutcracker at the Civic Theater since 1972. This year will be our 46th. San Diego Symphony. It's been an artistic partner with CBC since 1976. Our conductor and music director, John Stubbs, continues to inspire me, the dancers, and our audiences. The collaboration has created a beautiful relationship of music and dance. Having grown up in a military city and with a military father, those patriots have always inspired me. The CBC has created a great friendship since our beginning with these years. We provide tickets, scholarships, and outreach programs, and we always have a special night at the Nutcracker. These young singers on the side that were singing the national anthem are all dancers in our California Ballet. Oh, the Sugar Plum Fairy Tutu. I designed the first costume in 1960 and have created more than 20 costumes over the years. Costumes do help to inspire the dancers that wear them and the patrons that see them. These 20 costumes, called the Sugar Plum Fairy, each of them carries about 9,850 sequins, all hand-sewn. The famous Nutcracker has been an early inspiration to many dancers, myself included. I have been dancing, choreographing, teaching, directing, and designing for the Nutcracker since 1958. CBC has probably performed 50 Nutcrackers with 1 million people attending at the Civic Theater, other smaller San Diego theaters, and several tours in the Western United States. San Diego's first Fringe Festival inspired all of us to renew our commitment to pioneer new works and new dance experiences. The downtown library has helped to refresh this energy, present new choreography, new music. Beer and Ballet is our latest adventure into this arena, performed last year in Vanguard Culture's home at Park 6. This is the library. California Ballet is celebrating 50 years this season. This alone inspires me further to find the best of the next generation of artists, choreographers, administrators to continue the legacy of CBC. We have over 60 ballets in the repertoire, and this slide shows many photos of our history. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, the obvious question is, not only have you been doing this for a long time, but your mother did it, your daughter's doing it, your whole family does it.
My grandchildren.
How do you, what advice do you have if you want to infect someone with a love of art that is meaningful to you? What advice do you have for us?
Well, I've always used the music, the dance, the photography, the art, nature, all of that in the ballets. And I think that the children that we raise in the school with discipline and love for all those things, that it helps to inspire them. Yeah. I make sure that I always have good art on the wall and that they see the great masters from the early dancers all the way to current ones. We teach dance history, and I think it has been mentioned by other people here tonight how important history is, and I do believe in that, and that helps to inspire them.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're inspired. Our next presenter is an example of someone who had a real promising, important career in science that he transformed into art. So I'll let him tell you how that happened, but Thierry Brouard is the co-founder of Premium Paris, a photography and videography studio in Los Angeles, specializing in fashion and commercial and wedding photography. And he has clients like BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Natura, Skin Pie, and publishes in magazines such as Vogue and Playboy and other influential magazines. He grew up in Paris thanks to his father's career in Air France, and because of that was able to travel all over the world and led something which I'm really interested in, led his mind to go from being a PhD candidate in molecular biology to this wonderful career in photography.
All right, let's go. I'm very honored to be speaking with all this amazing guest speaker. So I'm including in this presentation my partner Luca, just because he's one of my biggest inspiration, and it's pretty interesting. Our inspiration are similar, but our work is completely different. We translate it completely differently. Well, you'll see this later. So one of the things that really inspired me, and that's how I started photography, was travels. So I travel a lot, and that's what made me pick up a camera. And back when I started, I would never have thought that I would make a career out of it. Actually, I was sure it would never happen. So this is all the photos, obviously, is photos I took. And what inspired me with travels is the culture, is the people, the connection I make with the people. Here is very interesting, is a photo in Sao Paulo. This is a highway that they build in front of these people's windows that pretty much destroy downtown because nobody wants to live there. But every Sunday, they close the road and they party and they play. And that, for me, was a big inspiration of like the optimism of how they turn something that's really bad, but they find this little thing that's good about it. This was in the hill tribes in Thailand. These people are refugees from centuries that moved little by little to Thailand. And these people live with really close to nothing, but interestingly enough, they're very optimistic and happy people. Another thing that inspired me with travels is the architecture and the history. And you know, when you travel in these places, and it's really fill you with emotions and colors and all these feelings, and that I translate in with my own work, my own vision. This is a friend that he passed away this year, and he was one of the most generous person I know, and he was giving so much, and I guess his way of helping others was just his way of kind of forgetting his own problems. So the carnival in Rio is pretty interesting. I'm trying not to say inspiration 300 times, but it's a little hard. The carnival, what's interesting with the carnival in Rio is that it's people from all, there is big inequity in Brazil, but people from all walks of life, they all come together and party, celebrate together, and it lasts like 10 days. What I love about this photo is that you see the force of nature. You see there's actually a tree growing in this house. And it was, I don't know, it was just when I saw this, it completely blew my mind. But one of the other things that inspire me in life is the randomness of things. Like this was, I mean, I don't know, it's just so weird. And it's inspired me. I'm like, wow, you know, people need to see this. I don't know why, but that's how I feel. And but really, it's there's something about what we don't expect. So we're gonna go back. Let's go to my partner Luca's work. He's inspired with the same thing, but a lot of people saying, "Are you inspired by drugs?" No, actually, it's really, you know, what inspired us is the connection we make to the people and translating in one shot. And you know, that's what we try to do. So you know, there's emotions, feeling, just the personality, and so how he translated in this completely surrealistic pieces is to take the subject completely out of reality and make it look like it's in an alternative reality, such as this. You know, this is like a big. It's really inspired by also our imagination, our perception of what people feel and think, and then we we make this big set where apparently very random, but it's very well thought of. So it's just this play of light and motion that, I don't know, we try to translate emotion and all the different senses that we use, you know, and which is great. All the different people here, creative people, we all express through different ways, but we also, all the different forms actually have similarities. So one of the things that's really is very inspiring. So that was shot in Brazil, and this is actually shot in the Samba school. They had all these props, the carnivals, and it's, you go in there and it's completely mind blowing. It's also you could be lead to use too much things, but yeah, what's really inspired us, besides this, of course, we're inspired by other artists, like anyone, but this is, for me, it's more in subconscious than really conscious, but of course we are influenced by it. But really, when we're a subject or brand, even, we, instead of just trying to make money or to think, okay, what do people want to see? We really want to connect with this person or this brand and find a different way, an original way of expressing what's our feeling of what we're connecting with. So, because with all the arts, there's things that it's very hard to do things that are completely different, but what's unique is a collaboration with all the different artists. So this is a completely different work that we have. We do a series of documentaries, and actually that's why I really wanted to do this, is we do a series about passion. So this man did 300 footballs, and it takes like, I don't know, a crazy amount of hours to do one ball. And he's very inspiring. He's suffering, he's poor, but his passion take him out of all his problems. And this is Brian. He's a gay rapper from South LA. It was not easy for him to to do what he wants to do, but right now he's recording, he's doing it, and he's showing the example to other artists that are challenged because they're not the stereotype, they don't fit the stereotype. And I'm just finishing with my latest series that I'm doing, which is very central. It doesn't include a lot of clothes, but that's how we are born, and I want to empower this.
I'm not going to let you get away. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, you have a professional partner, and what advice would you give? You know, art is such a personal thing, so having a business partnership with someone who obviously has a different style than you, probably a different point of view, what advice would you give someone about the pros and how to make something, a creative collaboration that goes on, like a partnership, it's not just for a show or a single piece. What advice would you give people to make that work?
Well, I think one of the misconceptions and one of the mistakes that a lot of artists do is to be scared of other people that do exactly the same job as you do. So, like, I'm a photographer. This guy, when I met him, I could have been, oh, this guy is going to try to steal my jobs or whatever. And I felt like the biggest blessing I had in my career was actually working with people that do the same job, but they don't do it at all. Nobody do what you need to do. And maybe sometimes it's dangerous, maybe they can steal your job, and then it's gonna push you to be more creative, to do your own thing. If really you're losing your job, it's not because of anyone else than you. You're limiting yourself. So for me, I would just say that you know, there is all kind of people. Some people are actually gonna try to steal your clients or things like this, and so for me, so be it. It's a risk to take, but I just think that go with people. If you connect really with someone and you feel like you can make something beautiful, then don't be scared.
Great. How many times have we heard tonight, don't be scared? I just want to tag on to what Thierry said, is that I give speeches, I do training in large corporations, and people are always hesitant to ask me for my slides because that's how I make money, and my concepts and so on. And I always give them my slides because the slides aren't me. And I'll always have another idea, I'll always have another experience, I'll always have another story. It's endless, it's abundant. Creativity is abundant. That's what's so awesome about creativity, is it's never ending. And I think in a sense, the braver you are in sharing generously, the more creative you become. And so I really appreciate your point of view and your advice. I think we're at our final presenter. And it's Roxana Velasquez, and she's the director of the Maharaja Baldwin Executive Director of the San Diego Museum of Art, and that's just a long way of saying that beautiful Museum of Art over there. That's what she does. And she's also really done this, particularly in Mexico City, at the National Museum in Mexico City, the Museum for the Palace of Beautiful Art in Mexico City, and she just recently served on the Paris Biennial Commission responsible for selecting the international galleries and antique dealers to exhibit at the 2017 Biennial. I asked her what that really was. So it's this, you know, huge art show, an antique show in Paris, and they depend on the people who curate what gets in that art for it to be genuine, to be valuable, to be significant. And she's one of the people in the world who's chosen to make that judgment. So thank you, Roxana.
Thank you all, and thank you for being here. What an inspiring night. Thank you for including me, definitely. Okay, let's go. So I am Roxana Velasquez. I am an art historian, and I have been surrounded by art all my life. I have devoted my last 25 years to communicate the power of art. I'm inspired by the capacity of individuals to create magnificent spaces for all of us to share and experience the sublime. I cannot imagine a single day without thinking of the civilizations that have preceded us and the relevance of their legacies. I'm conscious of the need to embrace the past in order to create a better future. I'm deeply committed to beauty and harmony, as well as the importance of understanding otherness. Combining the past with the present and allowing us to be elevated by this always brings joy to my life. Magnificent structures from the ancient worlds packed with today's audiences that experience music, dance, film is a motif for inspiration to me. I'm inspired by the Islamic architecture and by the principles that guided these constructions, from the great mosque in Cordoba to the Alhambra and the Blue Mosque in Istanbul. For them, beauty, harmony, geometry, and the unity created by the multiplicity of elements had to convey sacred spaces without any representation of the deity. Various civilizations inhabited those buildings, and I'm inspired to see how time has not altered the original structures, and how these monuments have been a refuge and have ignited musicians, architects, mathematicians, painters, sculptors, and poets. I'm driven by curiosity and a will to learn what happened inside those magnificent doors of the Blue Mosque, and how were they able to create such a pristine design of minarets and domes, the blue and white, the light reflected of the Mediterranean Sea. From mosques to libraries, knowledge is the only route to advance, and I'm deeply inspired to see the relevance that these type of institutions have had since ancient times. The Celsius Library in Ephesus represents the magnitude given to learning and the passion and inspiration that I get out of knowledge. Knowledge opens new paths and reveals scientific discoveries. I always admire and feel inspired by the advances on cures for human illness. John Salk and his crucial polio vaccine is honored with another magnificent space, the Salk Center here in San Diego, created by the magnificent architect Louis Kahn. Wonderful spaces allow creativity to arise. I'm inspired by the capacity of certain individuals to continue to raise the bar. One cannot imagine that Frank Gehry could again and again create another breathtaking building. The Louis Vuitton Foundation in Paris is a true representation of unlimited creativity. From monuments to buildings to abstract spaces, music creates the highest level of inspiration for many of us. For me, it's classical music. Ludwig van Beethoven, a genius, was able to create the most mesmerizing sonatas, a constant motif of inspiration for myself when I play the piano. The correct use of language, and therefore great literature, allows us to experience unlimited sensations and travel far away. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, with his Love in the Times of Cholera, taught me about the gravitas of real love while discovering the colorful world that surrounded Cartagena, Colombia, the sound of the region, the music, the sound of the wind, the sound of the instruments, and even the sound of the insects. His descriptions always bring words to life. In today's world, great films are inclusive of all manifestations of art. Thus, great books that tell good stories and create visual worlds are made into films. Often people say, the book was better than the movie. But what inspires me is exactly when they are equally good, as in the magnificent case of The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. Tradition. Tradition is indeed an important aspect of human beings. I'm inspired by tradition in different cultures, the family, the protocols, the food, the celebrations. I believe following traditions assures the continuity for communities. Traditions have been considered lately intangible patrimonies of the world. I'm inspired by tradition. But also, I'm equally inspired by the revelations of surprises that a painting can provoke in us. The joy I feel whenever I share stories on a painting that seem to be obvious for the spectator, whereas in reality, there are many layers of complexity to each of the paintings. A brief explanation, this Victorian painting is a sweet pink floral subject of the roses of Heliogabalus, which in reality is representing a plan for a murder. Nature. We always have heard and we know that not a single work of art has surpassed the beauty of nature. In reality, when an artist is able and capable to intervene in a natural space with this respect and with this harmony, it's breathtaking. Inspiration, Eduardo Chillida. Urban designs, when cities reimagine their own spaces and seek for new lights that enhances their daily life, it's a real motif of inspiration. Again, Frank Gehry added another exquisite building in downtown, allowing the audiences to be motivated by the music at the same time by the perfect harmony between a pristine space and acoustics. Dialogue. Dialogue is probably one of the most important virtues of the human experience. When we are able to feel empathy and seek for understanding of the others, our achievements are unimaginable. Alfredo Hart created, just here in the border of Tijuana and San Diego, the cloud in the year 2000. He was showing the way that these borders should not exist. We have proven that frontiers are surmountable. There is no bigger limit than the one we tend to create within our minds. Borders and frontiers should be always explored as a means to expand knowledge and advance society. The limits between art and science have always been very thin. I'm inspired by this work of art, the next work of art, that is done by a local artist here in San Diego, Marianela de la Hoz, who dares to present a possible conciliation between the lost paradise and the Big Bang. Her technique is medieval, almost Flemish, and yet the subject is so contemporary. We have spoken about monuments, buildings, and spaces. The space created by the surrealist was an invitation for all of us to have a journey within ourselves. I'm inspired by the capacity of René Magritte to project with subtle elegance and profound wisdom the freedom of our imagination. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, I was inspired by what you were talking about in terms of what would you say to educators about the benefits of arts and humanities education in an age where the only thing we seem to talk about is how to teach children to code?
I am a deep believer. I mean, all my life I've been surrounded by art, as I said. I've spoken about art. I am a big advocate for art. And I convince people that art is exactly what makes us different from the rest of the species. Creativity is part of our own self. So I cannot see a society without art. It has been said for centuries. We have to look into history to be inspired by that. But if we are not teaching our students and our communities with art, using the ways that we need to, even technology or funny games or augmented reality or those games that we invent, we are creating handicapped people, emotionally handicapped, and not being allowed to see and contemplate perspectives. There's no world that I could imagine that would be more sad than a world without art.
I can only say that what has been said, it's just one of the most profound evenings I've spent, I have to say, ever, and I'm not a young man. So I just want to appreciate all the people. The thing that is so remarkable is the hours of thought and art that you brought to us tonight. And I just want to express the deepest gratitude to each one of you for taking the time. I know what it takes to do something like that. It's hours and hours of thought and actual physical preparation. And I have been so enriched. I know all of us have. And I'm so glad we're going to preserve this on forever on the dreaded internet. But, but I just want to thank you so much for that and express appreciation for all who have been here tonight for that. Susanna?
So in closing, I'm just I had no idea what an emotional night it was going to be tonight. I was so moved by each and every one of you. It really, it kind of validates exactly what I thought was going to happen. This idea started when I asked the executive director of Fashion Week San Diego what inspired her. And I expected her to say fashion, of course. And instead she said, you know what inspires me? The underdog. When somebody just needs a little extra push, a little help, an open door, whatever, I want to help them. And it made so much sense because she was helping me. You know, she was helping this little organization that has done all of the things that we've been able to accomplish in 5 years with volunteers. Not a single person has received a paycheck yet. We're working on it. But I want to say, you know, one of the things that is really important to me, obviously, is creative collaboration. That's why this whole thing exists. Because now, in this age where the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for Humanities are losing federal funding, because we are always fighting to maintain city funding for the arts and hopefully elevate it, raise it. Our mission to inspire creative collaboration, to bring diverse communities together, to create arts jobs seems ever more relevant. And when there is no funding, what do? Do you stop programming? No, you work together, you collaborate, you share resources to make a bigger impact and show people and show the community and specifically your legislators why the arts matters and why they should be funding it. And so that's what I'm trying to do here, and I hope that you believe in what we're trying to do. I would be so remiss to not mention our cultural and community partners who have been a part of this journey throughout the last 5 years. They are the backbone of our programming. They are the reason why we exist, and I really hope that you will go to their events, support them, you know, sponsor their programs. Let me see if I can get to the next slide for myself. These are the people that we've worked with in the past 5 years. Please attend their events, sponsor their shows, sponsor their programs, open your doors to them, open your venues to them if you happen to have access to them. These are the people that have done all of this pro bono, just because they believe in collaboration. And when I say bringing diverse communities together, yes, it means ethnically diverse communities, but more than that, it means bringing communities together that typically would never intersect, like tonight. You know, we like to work in silos in San Diego, but tonight we had people from the world of photography and opera and dance and music and art collectors and, you know, just all of these groups that are following the arts. So I encourage you to support them. Of course, support this wonderful venue who collaborated with us tonight. Please let's give a round of applause to the MOPA, of course. And I hope that if you are inspired tonight and you believe in our mission, that you will join us in our 5 years, 5 senses campaign. Any increment of $5 a month, buy us a cup of coffee every month. That would be awesome. Or buy us lunch every month. That would be amazing. You know, it's not that much. You know, we spend it every day on nothing. And so hopefully you'll spend it on being inspired. Thank you. Have a great night. Please give a round of applause to WILL MARRÉ. Yes, please. Can we have the speakers on stage for a group photo, please?